Now, the wormwood explosion verse just read is not the initial subject for today, but simply a contrast to the multiplicity of man's theorized explosions which are necessary to accept and believe the theory of evolution, instead of believing the biblical creation account, for all that exists can be seen and not seen today. Without faith, it is impossible to please God, and this study today is a challenge for a soul to examine themselves to see if they are in the faith of God's Word. Or does one have faith in nothing? Bracket faith in nothing for now. Hebrews 11:6. But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Is your faith in a theory, actually multiple theories of man? Then know this: theory is defined by Merriam-Webster's as speculation, at least the Merriam-Webster's of old. Evolution theory requires faith, and not just one, but multiple speculative theories of man that are interdependent of each other. This interdependence of multiple theories is in itself an increasingly impossible complication. As Dr. Stephen Meyer, a genius Christian, states in a stimulating video with a brilliant young man named Ben Shapiro, this is a profound problem.
When it comes to the information string in the DNA, the contention is basically that given enough time, you run the experiment enough times, and eventually you will end up with an evolution that, and combined with natural selection, it preserves the mutations that are good, and you will end up with something that looks designed even though it is not designed. That mutation over time being preserved by natural selection is enough. Why doesn't that work?
There's a mathematical problem, and it's a profound one. My colleague David Berlinski calls it the combinatorial problem, or the problem of combinatorial inflation. We know from our experience with software code, writing and using it, that the last thing you want in a section of functional software code is a series of random changes to those zeros and ones. If that happens, you're going to degrade the information that's in that code long before you'll ever generate a new software program or operating system. And Richard Dawkins and many, many others, biologists, have acknowledged that what we have in DNA is akin to machine code, or as Leroy Hood puts it, digital code. It's functioning in exactly the same way. So what we've learned from software writing and using is highly relevant to understanding whether or not the mutation selection mechanism would actually could generate conceivably or realistically new information. And there's a reason that changing software at random invariably degrades the information before you get anything useful and new. And that is because there's so many more ways to go wrong. In any system of digital or typographic or alphabetic communication, there are vastly more ways of arranging the characters in question that will generate gibberish than there are ways of arranging those same characters that will generate something functional. So if you start randomly changing things, you're overwhelmingly more likely to find a gibberish sequence than a functional one. And as we've actually tried to quantify that, how much more likely, the quantitative odds are prohibitive. There's a scientist who worked for 14 years at Cambridge University named Douglas Axe. Did his PhD at Caltech, went on to do a long-term molecular biology research postdoc at Cambridge to try to quantify this question. How rare or common are the functional sequences that would make a new protein, or a new gene capable of making a new protein? How rare are the functional ones in comparison to the non-functional ones? And for a relatively short protein, about 150 amino acids long, he determined that the ratio of functional to non-functional sequences was about 1 over 10 to the 77th power. Now, to put that in context, there are only 10 to the 65th atoms in the Milky Way galaxy. So what that means is that a random search for a new functional sequence is going to be like looking for one marked atom among 1 trillion galaxies of the size of the Milky Way. So, and what turns out that even 4 billion years of life's history is not enough time to solve a search problem of that magnitude. And I go into all the math of this in the book, and it's pretty straightforward. There's only 10 to the 40th organisms in the history of the planet, not enough replication events to search a space 10 to the 77 big. So you're looking at, even in the whole, if you take the whole history of life on the planet into account, you're only going to be able to search a tiny, tiny fraction of the total relevant sequences. The bottom line is it's overwhelmingly more probable that such a search will fail than succeed in the known time of life on planet Earth, which means that the mechanism is more likely to, the hypothesis that the mechanism produced new information is more likely to be false than true.
And so the result of this is, as you say, that it's more likely that it's designed than that it was randomly done in terms of DNA. And that's
Ben Shapiro is of superior intelligence and speaks and thinks on a different bandwidth. Shapiro, who may be role-playing as devil's advocate concerning evolution in his discussion with Dr. Stephen Meyer, states that the evolutionary argument of randomness and time, explaining all that we see, and is opposed by Meyer with this huge problem. Dr. Myers describes this as a profound mathematical problem. It is also described by Dr. Belinsky as a combinatorial problem. What does that mean? Let's look at a farmer's combine to glean a better understanding of the combinatorial problem with evolution. The farmer's combine does just that. Combine machinery performs several tasks with one machine. It combines multiple tasks into one piece of machinery. It reaps, cutting, gathers, performs threshing, also winnowing, cleaning. It then evenly distributes waste or recycles stalk shafts and straw. Evolution by means of natural selection and time are very few words to describe a combination of events. This combination of necessary events are numerous and super complicated, and if common sense is used, and if one considers the mathematical possibilities of even one positive action toward a constructive amino acid chain, much less life, then as Dr. Stephen Meyer explains, this becomes a profound combinatorial problem. You have a greater likelihood of winning the lottery every day for the rest of your life. These complicated and numerous processes required for life to appear and for variation of species to explode into existence needs intelligence. These processes need a driver, intel, to orchestrate and arrange the necessary matter, wherever you get the matter from. The odds against macroevolutionary existence, that's new species from existing species, theory are so great that you'd have greater success picking one winning atom out of 1 trillion Milky Way galaxies, and that is not an exaggeration. Impossible, simply impossible. Embedding your eternity on these odds is truly faith in nothing.